This is the camera that I normally shoot YouTube videos with. It is the Nikon CoolPix L840. It does have a stereo microphone. As you guys have probably heard, it doesn't exactly sound particularly good, but if I remember correctly, it's a step up from my previous camera, which I am recording this with, which we'll get to that later. And it's definitely a step up from my phone. As you might have noticed, I was fiddling with a screen that kind of, does that. At first I thought it was stupid and just breakable, but this actually has been useful, particularly when you have the camera set on a tripod. If you're above the tripod, you can just turn the screen like that, and then you can see what's on it. The camera, I think it's, 38 times optical zoom. And it does have a tiny little speaker on it. Pop-up flash, and it quite violently pops up. It is manual. I know some fancy cameras have the automatic flash raising and whatnot, and it does have two zoom knobs. The first one's over here by the shutter button, and then the second one's over here. I don't particularly think I remember what that little button is for. But it records 1080p video, and it can do 60 frames per second interlaced, or 30 frames per second, progressive, I guess. It does 4:3 pictures and either 16:9 or 4:3 video. I believe you have to switch it to 480p before it will go to 4:3 mode for the video, though. It does do a lot of basic After Effects, as this camera that I'm recording with also does. It supports USB and AV out. I believe you can get a cable that gives you, the RCA plugs. I only have the USB cable. And notice how they have this yellow. That's for a reason. You can plug the USB cord, or the AV one, into the HDMI jack, and it will destroy it. That's what happened with this camera that I'm currently filming with. It shorted it, and I had to reach in there with a needle and unbend the pins enough so it wasn't shorting anything, but the HDMI plug is still permanently ruined. And then it has I want to say that that's like a fairly standard camera power connector, probably 5 volts. And one of the things I like most about this camera is the fact that it runs on AA batteries. I just use rechargeable batteries, and I keep a few extras and a charger in my camera bag. And this is the 16GB SD card that I think it came with. It either came with this camera or the camera that I'm currently recording with. And it, of course, has the tripod mount. And it's a 16 megapixel sensor. I don't know enough about what interpolation is to know whether or not that applies to this. I'm not a very technical person when it comes to cameras. And then, of course, the lens. As you can probably see, it is a little dirty. But let's go ahead and turn it on. Oh yes, I'm sure at this point you've heard this thing rattling around in my videos. I'd take it off, but then I know I'd lose it. So if we turn on the camera, oh yes, it's in the close-up mode, so it'll extend the it'll extend the thing most of the way to begin with. But yeah, it does have several modes. Basically, this is marketed towards people who maybe are not like very camera literate, like, not professionals, but maybe like a slightly advanced home user. Because it has multiple presets for different things. You can't configure a whole lot of stuff manually, but these presets will kind of tweak stuff to fit what you probably want in certain situations. Like, for example, backlighting will turn on HDR. Well, I suppose it only turns on HDR if you select it, but that's mainly the point of it. The HDR is kind of meh, but it certainly is something, and it does improve the shots when it's appropriate to use it. You do have a histogram, which that is a nice touch, and exposure compensation, so you can make it brighter or dimmer or whatever. Not really a true fix, because normally you'd want shutter speed rather than just brightness. And you can manually turn the flash on or off. I believe some modes will automatically hint that you should use the flash, not all of them. And in whatever mode you're in, you can manually turn on or off the tulip, as I call it, but macro mode, which apparently you can't do that in this mode. And if you press OK while it's here, you can. Wow, you really can't do anything in this HDR mode. Okay, I'll just put it in auto. So if I press OK, yeah, you can move the focus point around. In the menu, you just get your pretty standard settings. I believe, yeah, it does support a couple different things that could possibly be useful. Has different focus modes. And there is also vibration reduction and noise reduction. I've found them to kind of be less than beneficial for what I do, so I've just turned them off. And yes, there is basically if you want NTSC or PAL mode. Of course, this isn't going to alter your resolution, so it won't be truly PAL, but a frame rate that's more like a European format, I guess. Some various options for the wireless. I tried this once. I didn't get it to work. I never really want to sync photos to a smart device anyway. I just plug the USB cable in and copy them to the computer. So I did pay, I believe about $80 for this camera, and I didn't really know, I still don't know a lot about cameras, but I didn't know as much about cameras back then as I did now. However, I still feel that this was an alright choice. I just wanted something that was kind of like better than my previous camera, mainly in terms of zoom, and this was fairly cheap, so I went with it. I knew a guy who owned this camera, but one model below, the L840, and I believe the only difference with that was it had slightly less zoom. But $80 got me the camera, I believe an SD card. They provided one set of batteries. They were just alkaline batteries, so they didn't last particularly long, but it was nice. But yeah, that is definitely a thing. Rechargeable batteries last a heck of a lot longer in this camera and probably most other cameras than your standard alkaline batteries will. And unlike lithium ones, it's no big deal if one of the batteries has to be replaced because they're fairly standard and you can just go to any store and buy them. And also, it's a lot easier to have multiple sets of batteries and probably less expensive. But $80 got that, and yeah, got the stuff that I mentioned. I mean, not the rechargeable batteries, but. And it also got this camera bag, which ironically is a Sony camera bag, and this is a Nikon product. It came with the USB cable. I didn't come with that SD card holder. That's for my spare SD card. It's a pretty nice camera bag. Somewhere around here there is in fact a manual for the camera. Oh yes, it's over here. But basically just tells you how to get started with the camera. One of the things, I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword, because sometimes I do like to record in 4:3 mode, but when you record using this camera, it crops it down from 4:3 to be 16:9. I know some things, I believe, have a 16:9 sensor, which I suppose is better suited for these modern times. Oh yes, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this camera also has a neck strap, which it's a rather comfortable neck strap. I mean, it's not like it's super fancy or anything, but it does the job. And this actually is Nikon branded, and it says CoolPix too, so I assume that this is probably original to the camera. Unlike the camera that V Westlife just did a video on, I'm sure you can probably find this one on eBay. Not that I'm particularly recommending it, because unless you're in the specific niche that I was at the time that I bought it, there's probably something better you can get for however much you're willing to spend. And even at that time, maybe that was true for me, but I wasn't looking to go like a couple $100 in. I just wanted something below $100 that, worked. And I was thinking more along the lines of photo taking at that time, which this is a great camera for. But it does do pretty good video. It's the best video taking thing that I have. Now the microphone, some people tell me that it sounds like it's from 2002, or any early 2000s date. I kind of disagree. I mean, I see it's kind of like, it's not exactly the highest quality recording, I'll give you that, but it's not terribly far from what my voice actually sounds like. It's not muffled. I don't know. I don't really think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but I certainly do agree that there is room for improvement. Now, unlike that page of the manual that you just saw, I charge the batteries using this Duracell charger. Yeah, shoot me. So anyway, this is the camera that I used to record videos with besides my phone. It's kind of meh in terms of microphone quality. I believe slightly worse than this one, and it's not in stereo. Or it might be the two lanes of audio soldered together, but it's only one microphone point. It uses a tiny little lithium battery. I don't particularly like that. If it's going to be lithium, I would prefer like standard cells, but of course that would require a larger camera. I just got this camera for free, so for what I paid, nothing. It's a perfectly fine camera. This is basically just like, I suppose, your average grandma's I just want to take some photos of my grandkids camera. I mean, presuming that your grandma does digital cameras. I don't believe mine did. You can kind of see here how the HDMI port there is destroyed, and not only do these look about the same, however, it's mislabeled kind of. Like, you'll notice that the USB port, come on man, focus. Not close enough. But the USB port logo is on this side. When you open it, that is the HDMI port, and this is the USB port. So it's kind of confusing, and that is what led to the unfortunate calamity. This just has a small flash. It doesn't pop out. Pretty typical for these pocket cameras. Only 6x zoom. I mean, there might be ones that squeeze slightly more out of it, but that's also pretty typical for this size of camera as far as I know. But one thing that I never mentioned is that the grip on this L840 is actually quite comfy. It's not really a particularly good way to hold on to this. You can see that the layout is kind of quite similar between these cameras. I believe they're approximately the same vintage. But by any means, the L840 is definitely the better camera, but I figured I'd just take a little moment to show you what I used to record videos on. You might catch a video or two that was recorded in my old phone, and then there was a video or two that were recorded on this phone, the iPhone SE. I'm blown away by how good the image sensor is, especially compared to my previous phone. But the microphone, with or without the case on, is just trash. I don't know. I don't think it's gummed up, because while it is certainly gummed up in there now, it wasn't before, and it still sounded muffled. I guess, what can you expect from a phone? One more thing that I should mention about this L840. I've mentioned it before. It's that the background noise problems that appear usually towards the end of what I'm recording. I've never quite understood it, but it seems to be caused by RF interference nearby, which, I mean, I guess makes sense, but you would think that would be kind of a sudden thing that appeared as soon as you started using the microphone, or it wouldn't happen at all and we'll be able to filter it out. But it seems cumulative. The longer you have the camera powered on for, the more noise that you will get. And such noise-producing devices, whoops, let me grab that, are this power inverter. However, surprisingly, that is not nearly the final boss here. In terms of RF frequency, that computer's power supply there, on my makeshift server, that power supply is Big Mama. You turn it, you just plug it in, and you can kiss all your AM radio reception bye-bye. I don't know what's up with that thing, but it needs some help. But I think that's probably a pretty good stopping point. I intended to keep this video short, but I don't think I really succeeded at that, especially considering I'll be throwing in shots and stuff throughout the video, which, I mean, by the time you get to this point in the video, you will have known that, so I don't know why I'm even telling you. But, you know, thanks for watching. Good day.